Alright guys, so tonight I'm going to discuss something that is actually extremely personal to me, and unfortunately here recently I've had the unpleasure of experiencing and dealing with. On some level, I'm sure that everybody in this class has probably had an opportunity, unfortunately, to go through this situation and experience, like I said, at some level, the effects of it. And what we're going to discuss tonight is divorce. And not just divorce, but divorce is a final decision. Not something that's jumped into lightly, not something that's taken as an easy way out. I'm talking divorce as a final decision. It actually is something that affects many, many marriages. I don't know if you guys realize, but according to the National Center of Health Statistics in 2011, over 50% of marriages ended in divorce in one year. And it's still estimated that currently today, over 50% of marriages end in divorce. Divorce is not something that is just settled between a husband and a wife. The situation affects many, many people. It affects the children involved. It affects the families involved, friends involved, and it can, depending on the situation, it can even affect the community, it can affect the business, it can affect there's a plethora of things that it can actually affect. What are the reasons for divorce? That's something that we'll get into later on in the speech. We'll discuss also how that can be prevented to some degree. And at what level should you actually make a decision to have a divorce against everything else that is a possibility for possibly fixing your divorce. So with this, some of you might be saying, why is divorce even that important? Divorce is something that's settled between a husband and a wife as a final decision. Well, like I said earlier, who is affected by divorce? Children are affected not just from the relationship that the parents decide is not good enough and actually decide on a divorce, but they're also affected after a divorce. They're affected when their parents pursue another relationship outside of the original relationship where the child was born. Patrick Fagan and Robert Rector wrote a paper in June of 2000, and in this paper they state the effects of divorce on America. 1 million children are affected each year by divorce. 1 million children. That's staggering to think that many children every year are taken from a two-parent, original parent situation and thrown into possibly a single parent raising all the kids, or just a broken home. I mean, can you imagine? The ages of that vary, but a baby anywhere up to an 18-year-old child affected. 1 million a year. In this book written by Patrick Fagan and Robert Rector, they also discuss an increase in changes of child abuse in a broken home situation. It also discusses the effects in the child's education and learning. It affects that child on multiple levels, not just emotional, but with that emotion comes anger, comes a dealing situation that most children don't know how to deal with. And they have no say in the situation. Beyond children, a divorce can affect family and friends. People feel like they have to choose sides. Close relationships can be lost, can be torn apart by trying to understand the situation or just separating yourself from the situation altogether. And something that a lot of people don't even think about in a divorce is the opposite spouse. If one spouse decides they want a divorce and the other one doesn't, that's something that has to be dealt with on both sides. There's a lot of different reasons for divorce, but regardless of the reason, it's still a marriage, it's still a separation, and it still affects the other spouse, the families, the children, and even outside of that. So knowing that so many people are affected in a divorce, what actually pushes people to a divorce? In a book written by Alan Hawkins and Tamara Frackwell in 2011, the title of that book is Should I Keep Trying to Work It Out? In this book, they polled a large group of people, and out of that group of people, they had a top list of reasons for divorce. And with this, the highest rating reason was lack of commitment by the other spouse. Underneath that, they had arguing, infidelity, too young in the original part of the marriage, unrealistic expectations, lack of equality, abuse, and then several of them had multiple selections within that. But we're going to go back to the lack of commitment. A lack of commitment in a marriage is definitely something that will tear it apart. But the commitment issue is from the other spouse. It's not from the original person. It's the lack of commitment from that other spouse. So a marriage is a selfless act. You're doing it not just for yourself, but for your spouse. And to stand back and think about that being the number one reason. Not abuse, not infidelity, but lack of commitment. Who's in control of commitment? Each spouse is in control of that commitment. And when you make a choice not to have that commitment, you're making a choice to leave your other spouse with no choice but to have a divorce. So, what direction can couples go? Marriages is actually a unity under God. And if you look in the Bible, there are many, many references to divorce. And in the Bible, it actually states that if a woman divorces her husband and remarries, she is still committing adultery with her new husband, even though there was a divorce established. So in the Bible, it actually states that divorce is really no option. You're going to commit adultery even if you have a divorce and remarry. So the Bible actually shows you stay committed, you work through any issues that you possibly will have, and it's about being not selfish. It's about living your life for God first, for your spouse second, your children third, your spouse is second. You make those decisions, you stand by those decisions. When you marry somebody, it is a commitment. It's a commitment under God. It's a commitment for your friends, your family, your children. When you think about the amount of children that are affected every year, you think about the main reason why people have divorces, and you think about what marriage is in the Bible. Every person that's ever faced with this decision or involved in this decision should think about it very, very seriously. And divorce should always, always, always be a final decision. Thank you.